All right, everybody. Hey, welcome to another exciting JFrog ML, I guess you would say, webinar about what we're doing in the space of machine learning and AI development. Today's topic, securing AI and ML development in the age of DeepSeek. Yes, that sounds very broad. In its description, but basically what it comes down to is today we're going to discuss the hazards of using open source foundation models. Um, Joining me today, and of course, every time, my amazing colleague here, Guy. Go ahead.
Hey Bill, thanks for the intro and great seeing you and everybody wherever you are in the world. I'm Guy. I lead the product at JFrog ML. We were previously Quack, a startup acquired by JFrog, uh, previously as an MLOps platform, currently integrated into JFrog in the whole world from MLOps, DevSecOps, and security. Previously, I worked in some big companies like Mercedes-Benz and Cisco, and also some startups. And I think that the funny thing is that I started playing with LLMs uh, about 2 years before ChatGPT. It was still GPT-3, and it was still kind of really niche before it really exploded. So I've really seen this world change, and I love it. Bill?
Yeah, and I'm Bill Manning. I am the senior solution architect for the ML team here at JFrog. Just celebrated my 8th anniversary as being a frog here. I've had a lot of interesting things in my life over time, as stated in my little bio things right here. That's not important for me right now, but yeah, you know what? If you have anything, you can just trust me. You can go to our JFrog YouTube page. I'm sure you'll see a lot of our talks. There are some things in here actually that I will be referencing in our main JFrog page because there are things outside of this that also influence, of course, safe and secure AI and ML development. But without further ado, let's go ahead and kick this off. So just to let you guys know, we had some previous sessions. You can go ahead and see these on our YouTube page. We did an introduction into our JFrog ML platform back in December. If you'd like to get a complete overview of that, please go ahead and do that. The next one we did is actually we did a whole idea of how to include MLOps using the entirety of the JFrog platform, from code security to third-party binary management and security, all the way down to deployment and how it can be affected using JFrog ML to make better investments in your AI ML strategies. And then last month, we actually did a whole thing on unifying traditional software supply chain and software development into AI ML. Now, the thing is that these were all great and awesome leading up to the subject we're going to talk about today. So if you have any questions, though, about the other things that maybe we're not covering in this, because we are going to be focusing on a very specific set of targets here, please go back and take a look, and we'll supply you with the information you need through the previous discussion that Guy and I had, which was absolutely every time absolutely awesome. So let's go ahead. So today we're going to be talking about models, right? Pretty simple. We're going to talk about model security problems. We're going to talk about open source models, right? Open source friends like Hugging Face. And we'll discuss some interesting things around that. Also, too, paid and proprietary models. Just recently, we actually, NVIDIA and JFrog actually have a partnership. So we'll talk about things like NIMS, which is actually in the NVIDIA inference models that they have that you can get from their GTC, which is their development catalog of models for AI development, and how we're helping there. And then lastly, we're also going to talk about JFrog security in ML, and then how we're actually helping machine learning safe and security in terms of that. So let's get started, right? So let's start off with the simple things first. And the simple things are, let's talk about models, right? Models are critical assets to the way you do ML, right? I mean, obviously, machine learning involves models. They have high economic value for your organization. It can potentially have some sort of competitive advantage for your corporation against another's. It actually helps in some cases with business critical decisions, right? Looking at, like things like fraud detection or whatever, you can use it for various ways in your organization, right? Credit fraud, targeted modeling for things like advertising, even down to things like infrastructure too, right? The thing is that having this is a lot of actual companies will utilize this and usually contain some sort of sensitive data, right? So in other words, you might pull a model off the shelf, and we'll talk about that. And you might use this model as a way to actually build something and then use your data to train against it, right? So you'll shape and refine and do all the things you do for ML. And remember, if it has some sort of exposure, you're exposing your data, just like regular software development. JFrog has a lot of interest in software supply chain security, and we're going to talk about how we're applying that to the same areas that you would do in machine learning. And the thing is that we're aware this is massive growth, but at the same time, let's keep this simple, right? This has been around for a while. I mean, this is just like software development. But the thing is, over the past couple of years, it really has taken hold. ML obviously and AI has become the hottest topics you could ever imagine. From people saying it's taking my job, or going ahead and using it for things like even critical security areas like predictive security, or even using it to scale their applications, right? The thing is that the AI and ML has just exploded and is being utilized in all areas of the company. So first of all, what is a foundation model, right? If we go by the technical assessment here of what it is, it's already like a built, pre-trained kind of model that you pull off of something like, say, Hugging Face or Kaggle, or in some cases like OpenAI or other paid entities too. And you take that, you tweak it, you work with it to work with it in your confines, figure out what features you need, and then you use that and use your own data to go ahead and actually use it in a way that somebody has like built a model and then you can build something around it. Guy, do you want to add anything else in here around models, like what you've seen, since yours is more your wheelhouse than mine beforehand? So I'd like to get your input on this too.
So I think great intro, Bill. But I think one of the reasons organizations, and especially large ones, want our help and have a question is not just which foundation models to use, but rather how they can understand which models are being used in the organization. Because the thing is that we work with a lot of organization from 100 developers to maybe 10,000. And many times everybody read blogs, sees demos, sees videos, wants to be the forefront of technology. And many times they want to move fast. However, as an organization, there are certain kind of things, dependencies, security that you want to track also as an organizational kind of way. So keep that also in mind from the developer perspective and the whole kind of organization perspective.
There's actually a term for that. I actually gave a talk on this one. It's called cargo culting, meaning the fact that you go to a conference, you hear all these amazing things, you watch a webinar or a talk, and you come back and have all these grandiose ideas. You're going to change the way your company and perspective happens. Remember, that's cool, but take the time to sit back and really learn what that means before you try to jump on and implement. And that's actually one of the things today, right? The idea is that most companies, when they think about ML development, they think in terms of silos, right? They actually think in terms of, I have my SDLC, my software development lifecycle on how I build my applications. And this is the way we've done it. This is the way we've orchestrated it, from curating what we're going to use, coding it, building it, testing it, deploying it, releasing it, the iterative cycle and when people go through it. And you've got DevOps teams that actually handle the way the developer operations happen. They work with the development teams to make sure they have the most efficient and effective programs. You have security teams that go through this entire process also, making sure that things that you have are safe, secure, and stable. And then plus, by the way, if you ever want to go ahead, go to our JFrog page, and there's tons of webinars that we've done on this, on securing your SDLC. And then when it comes to terms of ML development, it's kind of a new foreign entity. And if you look at it, they go, oh, well, it's just different. Data ingestion and cleansing and model tuning and building and securing. And it's not that dissimilar, actually. There are cross compatibilities between these that can be leveraged. And the thing is that one of the things that we're talking about with a lot of companies is, why do you have to go ahead and restrict all these amazing things that you've built in place, these ideas in terms of SDLC and securing the way you build your applications? Because we used to say every company is a software company, and we still believe that, but now it's every company is an ML company. You'd be surprised how many different companies out there. Almost every company we talk to, and we have almost 8,000 global corporations that use the JFrog platform for their software development, and they look at this and they go, yeah, you know what? This is kind of different. But to be honest, let's talk about this, right? What does this actual supply chain mean for ML development? Well, first of all, you need a place to store your models, right? So you have a model registry both externally with, like I said, Hugging Face, Llama, NVIDIA, tons, right? There's tons of open one source ones out there. Hugging Face is the biggest, right? This is the one we hear the most. It's the easiest to implement. Next thing you also have is you have dependencies, right? All the Python dependencies and Conda, the things that you use to tune and do this model. And in this case, by the way, you can proxy those open source repositories through Artifactory. You can proxy those Python dependencies. Then you have to think about fine tuning. How are you going to fine tune the data, making sure that you also have, the right infrastructure in place, right? And a lot of companies are still trying to figure this out. On top of that, too, you want to make sure you have the right inference information. So you can do inference around the way the model is actually being deployed. So you can make sure that your predictions, what your hypothesis, your theorem on what you think this model is going to accomplish is doing. You need some way to monitor this, right? You are using this. This is data that might be used by an application. It can be used by people, right? I want to know X number of customers, how they do it, maybe in an unsupervised manner or whatever, or they might do something more supervised, like I run a credit card company, and I want to make sure that my model is predicting correctly, so I want to make sure that I'm monitoring for things like drift. And then also, too, I want to have it a manageable life cycle so that it's not all Wild West, which seems to be the consensus this day as people learn to actually what does ML really mean. It's still a data nerd term, right? I mean, that's the thing. Let's face it. When we talk about machine learning, it's a whole different mentality when it comes down to us. I'm a data nerd. I love this stuff, right? This is what I do. I've been an engineer forever. And the thing is that they shouldn't be siloed, right? Most of them have some sort of symbiotic relationship between the application and the actual ML itself in some way. And by combining these together into a mentality that you have a concise flow is going to help you as an organization adopt and also maintain the ability to be a strong application player, to be a strong ML player in terms of this. And so where do you start? So let's start off at the beginning, right? And where does everything come from? Of course, it's your software supply chain. It all starts from there and the developers themselves, right? What they use to do the job that they do. And when we start thinking about this, you have your code, but your code is a very, very, very small percentage of everything you do in terms of application development. And the same thing could be said for model development. When we look at application and model development, you have APIs, library, base OSs, you name it. I mean, when we talk about the software supply chain, it's not just dependencies. It's open source packages, first-party code, commercial software, config files, containers. Everything can be considered part of your supply chain. Don't limit yourself to just that, because actually, false dependencies, those dependencies that you use to build your code, make up 85 to 90% of what you do. Think about that. 85 to 90% of what you do is somebody you don't know. You rely on them. And it's not just the implicit dependencies, right? The implicit transitive dependencies. It's also, too, the indirect, the ones that you haven't stated. When you ask for a library, that library depends on dependencies, but those dependencies depend on dependencies. I can keep going. It's like a Russian doll of actual dependency matrix. So saying that, ML is also part of this, right? It has the same basic level of ingredients for this when you are building your ML modeling. You have your third-party software, right? You have your third-party models you might use as part of this. We're going to use Hugging Face as our example today because I know a majority of the companies I talk to do use Hugging Face because what? It's an openly, readily available product. Right? You have Python and Conda. These are things that you use. You might use R also. We support CRAN, just so you know. But at the same time, Python and Conda, you can proxy both of those dependency package types through our solution and utilize them and make sure they're safe, secure. Of course, you're going to host your model probably in an image as part of a web service, or maybe you might just have it running in a way to actually operate it, and then you're going to want to do things to scale. These are all part of your model's actual software supply chain security in this case, right? Making sure that all these pieces are secure, making sure that every little detail, because remember, one single library can you open up your organization to a world of hurt, right? Look at SolarWinds. SolarWinds, when that happened, $100 billion remediation problem, that was a fourth level transitive dependency in the thing they were using. So please be safe, even in terms of ML development. Now think about this. ML development could be worse because it could be affecting the way that you interact with your customers. It could be affecting the way you use maybe AI for security. So keep that in mind. And when we start talking about this, the numbers speak for themselves. This is our number slide, right? The scary number slide. Every time you have to have something like this. But the thing is if you look over time, the number of applications using some sort of ML behind the scenes, whether it's either creating code or creating a service or anything like that, it's amazing. And the thing is that the accountability aspects behind vulnerabilities, potential exploits, is actually in some cases getting the least amount of visibility. And if you're playing with your data that is pulled from your organization, and for these models, you could run into potential problems with your corporation. Anything you want to add, Guy, as part of this?
No, I think you should go on, and then it will be easier to get a recap because we're almost there at
Exactly.
the point where everything kind of merges.
Perfect. Yep. And like I said, the thing is keep in mind, last year we saw a massive increase in supply chain attacks that, especially as ecosystems become more complex, protecting yourself becomes more important. And we actually seen other reports this year where we actually like 1,300% increase in threats year over year. Think about this. We're a CNA, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And we see more and more attacks year over year around this. So why is ML vulnerable? Right? This is the big thing. First of all, you have to ask yourself. So first of all, low security awareness. The thing is that people, like I said, this is still a little bit of greenfield when it comes to the way people are thinking about this. And there is the same kind of learning process that we went through with building software. The thing is that models are actually can be very prone to arbitrary code. It can be embedded in the model and escape your purview because you're just assuming I have a box of a model, I can do some tweak and refinement and use it. Well, somewhere in there might be something terrible, and we'll talk about that too. Also, too, there's not a lot of tools out there that will actually do validation and verification. We have some good news for you because you're looking at a platform that will actually help you make sure that these models and the things you use to build these models actually have that level of accountability also. And lastly, the thing is that right now, the maturity level for most MLOps platforms is very low. Our JFrog has actually been setting up this idea for 2 years, and with the acquisition of Quack last year, the amazing folks like Guy who joined our company, I couldn't have been more happy. We've turned that into JFrog ML. We bring a level of maturity that we can help companies go ahead and build a safer infrastructure, a safer process, more observability behind what they're doing in terms of ML models, the way they depended on us for their software development. So
I
let's
want
go ahead. Oh,
sorry, I want to add something on this. Many times we refer to models as this kind of, I know, magical thing that gives us answers and summarizes text and whatever. However, think of this, that when running open source models, at the end of the day, and I always joke, at the end of the day, it's Python code with files running mostly inside Docker containers. And Python code in Docker containers has been kind of treated as a security issue or security kind of object for years. So when we have models, they are these magical things. But at the end of the day, this is Python code running in Docker containers that may include many vulnerabilities that we might overlook because we tackle this as a model. So just keep that in mind.
and I'm glad you brought that up because actually this comes into the area of the software supply chain where we're going through this, right? Those potential threats, right? Compromised data sets. And like I said, we'll discuss that as part of this here. Model poisoning. One of the things is that our JFrog security product that we'll talk about our research has found these kind of things inside public models that are available for consumption by anyone. I'll show one of my favorite ones today, too. On top of that, too, the dependencies, as stated, what guys said, you have a Docker image, you have these third-party dependencies, all these libraries. Those can be vulnerable too, right? Like I said, not just direct transitive dependencies, but indirect also, even down to the containers that you're using to host this, and basically the OS packages, the runtime, anything that's used to actually operationally do that. Your prompt injection, model extraction, right? I mean, I can keep going on and on. Data leakage, model denial of services attacks, right? And then the last one, of course, is having a platform, right, that can actually be vulnerable too. So basically making sure that when we talk about the siloed approach before, by having a common set between ML and application development can increase your chances of having a more safer and stable environment to both house your applications and the ML that powers your applications too, with the most limited amount of security potential threats and issues. So when we look at a potential attack, let's just take this in for a second. So say a company even outside using us, that's why we decided to do. Say they're using a tool like MLflow, or is not besides JFrog, because if you're using JFrog ML, you might not have these problems because we do security. I'm just doing a little plug there. I'm just going to do that. That's okay. But let's say you have a responsible developer, right? You have some sort of model system where you keep your models, you have your registry, you do your tweaking, your fine tuning, multitude of products out there. And I'm a responsible developer. I request the model. I do, I pull the model. I do some tuning, all the things I do as a developer, and I'm fine, right? I have a secure, safe, legitimate model. Now, let's say I'm an irresponsible developer and I'm just pulling right from Hugging Face. I'm just pulling right out of the source. I researched it for a minute and said, this model looks great. I'm going to pull it down, not realizing that the model that I actually pulled down had some sort of malicious component in it. Next thing I know, I'm working with a malicious model, not even aware. I'm doing my job just like the responsible developer, but suddenly I have a model and I go, you know what, this model looks great. Once again, I have no idea what's in this model. All I know is I did my job. I'm going to go ahead and put this in our model framework. And suddenly I've actually poisoned our model framework. Our model framework now that I might be using, and all my other legitimate developers, when they request an update, will now be pulling that, right? This is behind the scenes, the fact that you can have somebody who pulls directly. And if you don't have those check marks, those checks in place, if you don't have that ability to sanitize and look at the things you're using when you're as a development team, you can run this potential threat where suddenly now you just have a poisoned, ML flow that could potentially be not just, I say, detrimental in its return values that might influence the way your company operates. Like say you're doing churn and suddenly your churn threshold, or say or credit risk, or your bank, and suddenly your risk potential goes in because it's actually evaluating the wrong data and you're letting all these people in who you should probably reject. You could, or worse, something that's actually phishing your data and shoving it off to another server somewhere and taking all your transaction, whatever. You've now exposed yourself. And saying that can then also ruin a responsible developer any day. How do we prevent this kind of attack? Well, first of all, you need a platform to do it. And this is where the sales pitchy pit comes in from us, right? So we're going to give you some best practices, but of course, we are a solution provider when it comes to ML development. Like I said, there's a reason why 8,000 global corporations almost, utilize our platform for safe, secure software development. And we're trying to do the same thing for ML, and we're bringing that to customers. So let's start off in the beginning, Artifactory. Right? So one of the problems I said is an irresponsible developer guy or woman, whatever, whoever it is pulling right directly from Hugging Face, right? And say that, that's fine if you're doing like a localized development, but how do you make sure it's safe and secure? Well, Artifactory is our universal repository manager, right? So it stores all the libraries, all the builds, all the models, all the Docker images, all the things you need for your development, meaning that we can proxy, we can store them. So say you pull an external model that's safe and legitimate, and you want to keep using the one from that and make that your base version when you're building your models, you can do that. You can proxy all your machine learning, right? Because we support over 34 different package types, but specifically for ML development, when I showed all those pieces before, you can proxy your Conda, you can proxy your Python, your Docker images, and Helm and Hugging Face, and also have local copies of this and create local copies. If you need to learn more about what we do as a solution in terms of software development, just go to our JFrog YouTube page, and we have tons of videos on what this means and how the securing even your software development can affect your company. And actually, Forrester did a great report by using us in our security products. It was a 393% ROI in 6 months on software development. But the thing is, too, let's go look at these models, right? Let's talk about Hugging Face. Right? Here's Hugging Face. Now, one of the biggest problems with Hugging Face is is that when you proxy these models and you're a single developer and you're pulling directly from Hugging Face, they can be gigabytes, tens of gigabytes, up to maybe a terabyte model that you bring down that you want to use and play with. One of these foundation models that might come out of this. Well, the thing is you can proxy that through our Artifactory. Number one, we help with something simple. Versioning. You can version your models. Number two, we can go ahead and scan these for compliance and malicious modeling. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail with our security. But on top of that, too, you can also prevent a lot. And the thing is that by using us to retain these, if you're a single developer and you bring down a 10 gigabyte, 100 gigabyte, say, open source model, that's fine. But say you're 100 developers, 1,000. This allows developer 0 to bring down this model, store it, and then say 99 or 99,000, whoever, how many developers you have that might be building models, can pull from the same place. So it reduces that. And when people produce models and they publish them back, say you have a 10 gigabyte or 100 gigabyte model, you're not storing another 100 gigabytes. Artifactory uses a checksum-based approach where we don't actually duplicate, so we can actually have space saving. Because what we'll just do is we'll just store the delta between versions, which is usually only a 3 to 5% variance in change between, say, 1.1 and 1.2. Also, if you're using something like NVIDIA, right? If you're an NVIDIA customer and you are using something, if I can just share my screen for a second. If I just do, build.nvidia.com. If I go in here and I use any of these models that I might use, part of their NIMS approach, right? The inference models that they create, you can actually go ahead now. We announced this at GTC, and before that, you could proxy those containers. You could proxy the models through us. We could scan them, make sure they're safe and secure. We allowed local network performance to make using these massive models internally much easier, and it's super flexible. So we're helping in terms of that, which is how do you retain the data into your org and do it in a safe and secure manner, even down to people like NVIDIA, to show you that we're covering the gambit. And on top of that, if you're not using this and you're creating your own model sets, right? You're creating your own model and you want to store them, we actually have our own machine learning repository. Once again, our repository structures, it's a local repository. If you're one of our customers, you understand that it's something that you control. A remote repository is what we have is called a proxy. That's how you proxy NVIDIA, Hugging Face, and third-party sources. A local repository is your own. And this allows you to have your own retention of your own model in Artifactory. It can do it through a very small client SDK called FrogML, surprisingly, right? I know you're all surprised by the name, but it's super small, it's extremely tidy, and it makes it easy to work into your ML flow when building your own models. It allows versioning. And, I keep bringing up versioning, and I can't believe in this day and age of software development, but now ML development, we're solving one of the essential bits of actual software development that is now part of this, which is how do you actually version your own models? This is a huge problem with some orgs. And then lastly, you can also utilize our promotion and federation and access controls behind this, right? So it's all around that. Now, I'm going to go ahead, and this is the fun part. This is the part I love talking about, security. Right? And JFrog security has a bunch of different components in here, and we'll talk about those. We have our curation product, we have our X-ray product, which is a continuous security evaluation, our advanced security product, and also to runtime. We have details, by the way, separate webinars on all of these components if you want to do greater detail. But first of all, we are a CNA. So let's start off the fact that when we talk about security, we're not just talking about it in some pedestrian manner that we understand what happens in security. No, we are security. We actually have a massive research team that actually works with the community to ensure. We have found, in total, right? We've discovered 2.8 million. Actually, it's almost close to 3 million artifacts in open source models. Like not models, but like open source dependencies over time. We do CVS. Anytime you see a CVE, we're actually producing CVEs and we're enhancing them. And we found tons of information. So we're a security authority. We're not, like I said, we're not just pedestrian. We're actually part of this. And by the way, if you need to go ahead and you want to look, just go to research.jfrog.com. And even here, we have information about things like model dependencies. And also, too, now we even have a whole section on model threats. This is where we publish our research from our research team. So one of the things that we've seen over time, by the way, is the fact that models grew. Right when we started working, I've had to change the way I look at models, especially for terms like people like Hugging Face. In March last year, just last year, this time last year, um, the thing is that Hugging Face had about 500,000 models. That's it. And we actually started working with them last year. We actually started looking at these models last year. And the thing is that we found a bunch of dependency attacks. We found a bunch of people, things that were actually terrible in this. Well, only a year later, there are over 1.8 million, 1.8 million models now in Hugging Face. And we've actually identified over 400 malicious models. Think about this, right? Look at that jump in the amount of models that are available in Hugging Face. And the thing is that a lot of other companies have actually said, hey, you know what? There's 4,900 malicious models that are out there. Be careful, and that's crazy because actually our security group actually went in and scanned 1.8 million plus models. We've actually scanned those. And the 1.8 million plus models, we actually found only 400 really contained true, genuine malicious intent. That's insane. We actually did a reduction of false positives. Think about this. You're doing your model development, and you get a bunch of false positives. That's going to affect the way you do your operation. It's going to slow things down. It actually might even ruin your day. And the thing is that even though people are aware of this, people are still utilizing it. Now, the funny thing about this is if you take a look, here's an example of a model that was on Hugging Face. In this case, right, if people actually know that this actually has a full issue, it's very suspicious, and it still has almost 3 million downloads. Almost 3 million downloads. I mean, that's insane. And the thing is that when you look at this, how do you stop that? Well, like I said, we actually went in and we scanned all these models, and we actually supply this to our customer base. One thing I'll just do is just so you know is we actually have a thing called catalog. I'm going to log in. I'm going to bring this up in a second, but we actually have this data, this 1.8 million scanning points, is available to you. And just so you're aware, Hugging Face was so impressed with the things that we do that now, as of actually the 4th, as of the 4th, I can show you that we are officially the security solution of choice for Hugging Face for the public repositories. And if you look at any of these potential issues, like here's one for my favorite, by the way, this is my new favorite malicious model. It's the Pickle Scan Gordon Ramsay 2. That's here. And if you look, you can see that JFrog is now the choice for the primary way for you to go ahead. We've actually marked it unsafe. And the best part is if you click on here, it actually brings you to our research data to show you what we found. Now, saying that too, JFrog Security also brings all of this to your software development between software bill of materials, contextual analysis, all the things that you see here. By the way, we actually have, like I said, more in depth. I've done a lot of demonstrations and a lot of webinars based on this also. So our JFrog security product is absolutely one of the best on the market and will help you guys do better builds, from infrastructure as code to deep level scanning to actually my favorite, it's called contextual analysis, whether or not you are being affected or not affected by a specific vulnerability. And as stated before, by the way, our package catalog, you could see where we have 1.8 million, actual 1.9 million now. Well, it went up from the last time I checked. So we're at 1.9 million now, actual models for Hugging Face. And this is available through our curation and catalog product, where you can even write rules and policies to help block this. But we'll get to that in a minute. Anything you want to add, Guy, before we continue to the next part of the topic?
So could you go back 2 slides? I think, yeah, one before, right? Even one before, the one with, yeah, this one. So sometimes, no, this one, we had another one with the million. Oh, this one, yeah, sorry. Some models are, I guess, easy to pick because these are the common models, the ones you hear in the news, the DeepSeeks, the Stable Diffusions, the Llama 3s. But and if you could go back to the package catalog, one of the reasons there are 1.9 million models in Hugging Face is the fact that many people can upload, anyone can upload actually. It's like open source. I can fine tune models with images of cats or with data that I got from ChatGPT and upload a version and say, hey, this is the best one in the world. Now, this is where it gets tricky, and this is where you need kind of extra tools, because how can you trust a model developed by even me, Guy? I'm a product at JFrog ML. I'm not vetted. I don't have any credentials because I uploaded it from my personal account, for example. So Hugging Face is full of these models. Now, some of these could be great and could be the most beneficial things for your organization. However, you need a way to understand and to find what's good, what's bad, what fits you, what goes through the organization, and always think as kind of organization leaders, you need to make sure that people from your organization follow the rules you want to give them. So this is where it gets tricky, and this is where the whole kind of version management and security is really important.
I agree, and exactly, and that's the thing. Like we said, we want to bring to the table. So make sure that these models are secure. Make sure all the things involved in both the SDLC of your software applications and your MLOps platform have the same alignment, right? Because they are symbiotic. There is a symbiosis in some cases between them. And saying that, when we look at the idea of the ability to grab things like dependencies that might be curated in this respect, we have this product called curation. Curation is like a firewall for your organization. That's actually one of the things that we're showing here, where it says this is partially blocked, because I can go in with our product and actually write policies where I can have my ML allow list. I can block on vulnerabilities. I can do a whole bunch of things: license compliance, operational risk, meaning how old or outdated are the things I'm using. So not just the models, but everything else involved in the models. And we give you the ability to go in and audit. Now, this one doesn't really have a lot in audit, but I can show you one. We have plenty in this respect in other. This is an my ML platform, but in my standard software development, the thing is that we can actually go ahead and give you information on what that means, right? Who's accessing what. So giving you guys the ability, including for ML, to have a centralized control of third-party open source packages, right? That's one area of this. Being able to automate this, right? One of the biggest complaints I hear from a lot of organizations is, we have a security team that has to go through, and the security teams hate this too. We have to go ahead and approve every single package and library that comes in. And the problem is that takes away time. That takes away also things like velocity of an organization. This actually allows you to create automated tasks and actually allows the security teams to focus on more credible threats as opposed to a lot of ancillary noise. And in addition, it can be integrated throughout the entire process. So our entire security solution is designed to be part of the entire SDLC, part of your also to your machine learning development lifecycle also. And the thing is that like we showed you the catalog, and this allows you as a developer, have your developer teams, you can write rules and policies, and those rules and policies can also be implemented so that they can go ahead into the JFrog product and do a search on the actual dependencies themselves. So like one of the things that we showed here is if I go to package catalog and I look for something even like say PyTorch or anything like that, you can see where like we might have a specific version. It just makes it easier for your developers to go in and take a look to see what they can use and what they can't use.
Bill, I just want to add one word on that. It kind of going back to ML. Remember that running models is not just, again, a model. It's also a lot of Python packages. So, for example, some models cannot be run without the transformers package or without the PyTorch package. And this is why, could you go back one slide? Yeah, sorry, this one. Yeah, this one is especially important because PyPy is an essential part in running ML models. You actually can't run ML models, many of them in Python, without kind of vetted packages. So kind of the creation process of packages together with creation of models is essential because they actually go together.
I agree. And the thing is, too, by the way, we also bring this down to the IDE level, right? So if you ever using something like VS Code, you're even using something like Copilot, we actually have a Copilot integration that uses the same data, that same rule set, everything that you have here that can be applied. So the developer in their IDE can query this and say, can I use it? Does it contain vulnerabilities? And are there any other projects using the same one in our organization? So the thing is that by preventing, giving this, we're giving you the ability to write rules and policies that don't affect the developer in a way that hinders them, but gives them the information to actually make their job easier. It actually expedites and increases the velocity of organizations by having that information where it matters most at the developer level. And we also provide a machine learning bill of materials behind this as part of our security offering too. One of the things I'm super excited for, that we have is the ability for you to have that traceability, the compliance in government, right? Being able to look at real security threats, make things reproducible, and have an entire aggregate of the software supply chain. And even now, when we actually go in to the product that we have here, right? This is our JFrog ML product, which we had a previous discussion on, and we have this piece called versions. If I look at any version of a build that I have for, say, an ML model, I can click on more details, and we have the machine learning bill of materials, and also things like model card support, right? These are going to be essential for the way that you're actually building and developing the things that you're doing. And this actually is another area that we can help bring some sanity to this, especially in terms of large language models. And then lastly, as part of this too, is, we have JFrog ML, right? We have the experiment tracking, build system, deployment monitoring, pipelines, and data and catalog, right? Everything that we showed in the previous stuff that we had. And this means that when we go ahead and you're looking at everything that we're doing here, first of all, we have a lot of critical assets, right? We're helping you manage the models, the infrastructure, the data, making it easier, making sure it's compliant. I mean, one of the things I like to show companies here is that, if I'm looking at a model, I actually love I love showing real tangible information. I showed you that NLP model that I had before, that sentiment analysis, the one right here. I was showing you the versions, right? Inside of Artifactory, inside of our product, I can actually show you, sorry, I was in the wrong tab. Here's the actual container that I'm actually hosting that this model in. I can show you that it has a series of vulnerabilities that could affect the way this is being operated. I can show you, the thing is I have 148 vulnerabilities, and we have the ability to actually, with our advanced security product, which has this thing contextual analysis, what that does is it says, if you're being affected by a vulnerability, are you really being affected by a vulnerability? Is the condition for that CVE being met? So if you look in here, I can show you out of those 148, I have 12? I have about 12, 13 vulnerabilities that I need to fix. The rest are not relevant because those conditions aren't being met. But I can go ahead and fix them. And I actually know where I can fix them. I know how to fix them. And I can do this at the developer level. We can also let you know, are you exposing any secrets, right? Here we go. Whole bunch of hard-coded secrets and API keys. That's terrible. That's terrible, right? These are things that you might not know about the model you're serving. This is just one way to do this. In addition, being able to show, is the application that I'm hosting as an ML service, is it configured correctly, right? I'm not enforcing TLS. Well, I'm just exposing my communications for this everywhere. So the thing is having this level of accountability to even go ahead and even go to the lowest rung on this, which is down to the actual image itself that I have, and understand and be able to go ahead and label and tag, being able to go see, how is this thing produced? I can attach things like evidence, like digital signatures to ensure this model has been approved by certain people in my company. So the thing is that what we're bringing to you is the ability to also to go ahead and close that security gap, right? Make sure that you have all the information, all the tools, actively being able to address these, even down to things like runtime. We even have the runtime component if you put this in a Kubernetes environment. Set up guardrails. Make sure, when you are going ahead and you're using, say, our policies when it comes to things like curation, right? Being able to create policies, that might be better for you, right? Apply it to whatever way you want. We can always go into the details later on, but we have all this ability for you to write your own conditions, to have pre-made conditions on how you can make your AI developments, your ML development safe, secure, compliant, by also making it easy, making it part of the process, ubiquitous to way you're doing things. And that really is the biggest thing here is, right? Make sure those models you're using are safe and secure. When you're searching a model, you can even go search for, say, something, inside of Hugging Face, and you look at any of the models, go look and, look at the labeling. If you're using us, please go to the package catalog, do the same search here, right? We have that same level of information. So it's really, we provide you with the tools. We provide you with the knowledge on what you need to do to ensure that your AI and ML development is safe. Don't trust those third-party models. Make sure that they're compliant. Make sure you dive deep into them and use a platform like us that will give you the insight that you currently don't have. And also standardize with your standard software development and also to your ML development. Guy, anything you want to take us out with on this?
So I want to take a different. This was great, and I want to take a different stance because you took it from the, let's say, DevOps security stance. But many of our
Yes.
users, and especially around AI and ML, and I'm sure everybody in the crowd here knows that a lot of data science and developers want to actually use models. They don't care too much about security. They don't care too much about compliance. They're like, hey, I saw this blog. I went to this talk. I want to implement the best chatbot copilot for my company. I want to improve productivity, and I want to test it. And what we care and what we build at JFrog ML, and this, I guess we'll see this in the next demo, is the tools to make this seamless for you. So you can work on your project, you can deploy models, you can create new versions, and everything that Bill showed and everything that we want to have, security, curation, governance, compliance, will happen beyond the scenes. So this means that users are free to do whatever they want, but we kind of set the, let's say, the fence around what's allowed. And we make this interface of, let's say, enlarging the fence if you need to kind of bring something new in-house, or you want even to take something out. We make this interface easy so that you can have from one side the JFrog ML view, the data science view, the AI view, and from the other you have kind of the control view, the security, the governance, the policies, because we know that multiple people are involved, multiple personas are involved with this process of creating the next best AI product. It's not just data scientists, it's also security and DevOps, and they all have their own angle they want to view. They all have their own kind of KPIs. And we know this and we tackle this from multiple areas. And this is what we really care about, having the ability to create interfaces for developers and data scientists, but DevOps and security people from the others, and have them work seamlessly. And this is kind of how we think forward, if this makes sense.
Absolutely. And as stated, right, built into our ML product. And like I said, we have a great version, other longer talks and discussions into the JFrog ML product. But one of the key features, like you said, is here. So say I am doing a build and I am doing some testing, of like a model that I have here. I can actually go ahead, even as a data scientist, when I look in here, I can go ahead and look to see, is the thing I built, is the thing I'm using safe, secure, and compliant? And then if my security team comes to me, I have the ability to view this here. And as stated before, we also bring that same level of view into the environment where the data scientist, the data engineer, the developer who actually might be building some other things for it, we actually provide them with that level of data also. So I think we might have any time for questions. I think that's the reason why I left a little bit of time here in case we have any questions that people want to know. We'd be more than happy to answer those, and I think we actually supplied. It says having the ability to proxy models from OLAMA model registry CMOS would be a nice feature. Yes, I agree. Currently, right now, you can do, one of the things you can do, like I said, is I think I'll let Guy talk about this because I think we will
I
be.
want
But
to I want to talk about this. Great request, super common. It's on our list, and I'm not just saying it vaguely. I'm saying it for real. We've been getting it from a lot of customers. So I don't want to kind of give peeks into what we are building on that scene because we're building something exciting. We're going to launch soon. However, Olama and JFrog is a request we're getting a lot, and it's on our eyes. So
it'll be
stay.
very similar to this, right? It'll be very similar to our Hugging Face repository, which actually is a proxy, right? So basically, instead, there'll probably be one for Olama, and then you'll be able to go ahead and point to that, right? So that should give you the ability to do that.
And I see we have another question from about AI security, the AI security SDLC versus machine learning. So I'm not sure I understand, but if I do, we do see, let's say ML and AI, sometimes they're the same kind of thing, sometimes they're completely different. Sometimes ML refers to more classical models, smaller models, and AI refers to kind of LLMs and bigger ones. And it depends. And first, let's assume it's the same. So yeah, the SDLC or the model development is very similar. One thing that's different sometimes with, let's say, AI or ML is that with AI models, sometimes you don't want to develop your own model. You're not going to be training any models. You're just going to be pulling existing models that someone did or someone created from Hugging Face. And in that case, you must have kind of proper security tools. And in ML, sometimes you want to kind of create your own or train your own models. And this kind of demands different tooling. However, we view both and we regard to both, if that's the question.
Excellent. That actually was a fantastic question. I actually got that, the question a bunch. I'm glad we got the old llama question. A lot of the dealings that I deal with is the combination of teams, right? And Guy brought up a very, essential part, right? Data scientists believe, want to do these specific things, and companies are trying to put them into the same guys that they would put their developers. So, like, well, they're developing and machine learning, so there must be developers, and in a way they're right, just different tech, different types, right? A developer who develops applications might use a different language, different tool set, but you still have Python, you still have Conda for those packages, right? You're still doing R. So the thing is that bridging that gap, also too, between AI development, ML development, and standard SDLC is really one of the areas where we are really bringing a lot to companies, and the companies that we've been dealing with, especially I've been talking to a ton lately, since we announced this, and having that paradigm shift, but retaining the ability to, have that security offering that they've come to grow and love now for ML development has made it actually easier for them. Once they realize that there isn't this huge gap that they think they have, especially if they're using our platform, that actually is just an extension of the current platform, including their own models or being able to use foundation models in our product, really helps an organization expedite the velocity in building out ML. Especially one of the things that we've done with our product, JFrog ML, like I said, we have a huge breakdown of it, is that by unifying all the things that we do between our standard platform, right, which is just JFrog Artifactory we did for SDLC, and integrating the ML portion into this, including the ability for companies to have, one of the problems that we hear a lot is that there's a gap between what the data scientist wants and the infrastructure team, right? They go to the infrastructure team and say, I need infrastructure to run this model, to run it efficiently, and there's a lot of gaps. And a lot of companies are still trying to figure that out. So even down to the security and beyond that, the ability for us to help retain and actually work through, things like versioning, and the ability for companies to go ahead and say, yeah, well, you know what, data scientists, here's some infrastructure that you can use to do this, to build your own models, and then also to include the security team as part of this to make sure that they're safe, secure, and compliant, really kind of helps co-align all those organizations into a really highly effective software development ML machine. Guy, any other words of wisdom before we end this little soiree with our guests here today?
No, unless any questions in the
Any
crowd.
questions in here? Let's
I
see.
think we've covered a lot. I just want to say that really our goal for the next features we're rolling out and also our roadmap is really a lot around trust, security, governance, because we know that for many companies, enterprises, and organization, this is one of the largest kind of, let's say, walls or things that kind of bring down velocity when integrating AI, because we all know AI is here and AI is going to help our life become better and our products become better. However, there are so many kind of aspects to it, from hallucinations to security, to deployment, to cost of GPUs, to tracking permissions. And we're tackling this in the head of security, governance, and I think also being open to do whatever you want by using a platform. Thank you very much, Bill. It's been really interesting. Kind of always I see this, and it always kind of makes me think of new stuff you can kind of uncover.
Well, and that's the thing is, like I said, guys, join us next month. We'll be announcing what the next month's discussion. Every month we'll be bringing up a unique topic. I think we have a very interesting idea for our next one. We'll let everybody know. Please join us. This is a series, so please see the previous versions for in-depth details on those there. And thank you for everybody for your time. We always appreciate when you take time out of your day to hear us talk and give you some insightful information. We hope this has helped today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Cheers, everyone, and have an amazing day, and be safe.
Bye-bye.